The Locked On Podcast Network presents the College Sports Big 3 in 30. The three biggest stories in college sports. From our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The College Sports Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in college sports.
Texas survives and advances in the SEC tournament.
You are Locked On Longhorns, your daily podcast on the Texas Longhorns. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
The Texas Longhorns held off Vanderbilt 79-72 in the first round of the SEC tournament in Nashville. The Longhorns were in control for most of this game. Texas was up by 15 at halftime. They pushed the lead up to 18 at one point early on in the second half. The Longhorns really dominated most of this game. They were up double digits for more than 20 minutes of today's contest in Nashville. It's a quadrant one victory for the Longhorns, and boy, did they need it. A loss today would have all but ended Texas's season and maybe would have all but ended Rodney Terry's tenure as the head coach for the Texas men's team. But instead, they live to play another day, and the Horns will get another chance to play Texas A&M, the rubber match as the two teams split in the regular season. But a huge, huge victory for the Longhorns, and it has me, and I think it has a lot of Texas fans wondering, where was that? Why didn't we see that in the 18-game regular season SEC schedule? Why did it take until this true must-win game to see that type of energy level, that type of effort, that type of desperation for this Texas team? We didn't see that against Oklahoma on Saturday. We didn't see that against Georgia the previous Saturday. We didn't see that from Arkansas. I mean, we really didn't see any of that in February and March. And finally, it shows up. Now, better late than never, I guess, but it might be too little, too late for the Horns. But at least they gave you some belief, and at least they kept their slim tournament hopes alive. There's a gnat flying around, and it is absolutely killing me right now. But they found a way to get it done. But again, watching that game, especially watching that first half where Texas was in total control, just wondering, why did we not see more of that during the regular season? Look, it was 40 minutes of damn near dominance. I mean, Texas was in control. I know things got a little tougher than any of us wanted down the stretch. Vandy cut it to 7 with about a minute and a half to go. Texas was playing stupid. They were fouling way too much, which that's the one thing you can't do when you're playing with a lead late in the game. You cannot stop the clock and give the other team free points. Texas did that, which allowed the Commodores to get back into the game. And Texas also missed a couple of free throws as well to keep the door slightly ajar for Vandy. But there was never, and I don't know about y'all, but there was never a moment in that game where I thought Texas was going to lose. It's pretty funny. The warm-ups that the Texas players wear on the bench say nothing easy. And that feels very appropriate for this Texas team because nothing has been easy for them, and they really didn't make this one as easy as it could have been. But again, there was never really a moment where I thought Texas was going to lose today. They just did too much right on both ends of the floor to keep Vanderbilt at bay. And yeah, it got to 7, but again, it never got to within 2 possessions, so I felt good about Texas there. By the way, if you're watching this live, comment in the live chat. Texas Rocks is here, says, not good news. We don't need Terry saving his job. Well, Texas Rocks, if you want a change to be made atop the Texas men's basketball program, I've got good news. The Longhorns haven't done anything yet. All this win does is gives them another opportunity to win another game tomorrow. And look, if they do that, that might be enough to get them into the dance. I don't know if it will be. They still might have to beat Tennessee in the third round of the SEC tournament. But even then, I'm not sure that's enough. Part of me thinks that RT's fate is already sealed and the hay is already in the barn. And I know Chris Del Conte has had some conversations behind the scenes about who could be Rodney Terry's replacement. So, look, I don't think you're alone. I think there are a few Longhorn fans out there that are rooting against Texas right now just to make sure that the Horns make a coaching change once this season comes to an end. If you are one of those fans, then again, I think you're still safe. Like if Texas goes out there and loses to A&M tomorrow, the Horns aren't making the tournament. And I think that means Rodney Terry isn't going to be allowed to continue coaching here. Now, if you're still here, Texas Rocks, I'll ask you, you're going to be rooting against Texas A&M tomorrow? Like, I guess it's one thing to root against Texas against a team like Vanderbilt, but the Aggies, your biggest rival, you want to lose to them? I know long term you might think it's better, but I can't think of too many instances. Really, I can't think of one instance in my life where I've ever rooted for Texas A&M. I really don't think I've ever rooted for Texas A&M to beat Texas in any sport at any moment. So I do wonder if the portion of Longhorn fans who want change, again, are going to be rooting against Texas, against A&M tomorrow. But they found a way to get it done. And you wonder if Tournament Terry is a thing. Remember, RT won the Big 12 tournament in 2023. Of course, Texas made the deep run to the Elite Eight that season. Rodney Terry won a tournament game last year, so it's 4 tournament wins in 2 seasons. He's 1 win away from getting Texas back to their 3rd straight tournament. The last Longhorn coach to make it to 3 straight NCAA tournaments was Rick Barnes from 2010 to 2012. So it's been more than a decade that a Texas coach has been able to go to 3 straight big dances. Again, job's not finished. Texas ain't there yet, but a win tomorrow might get the Longhorns there. And Rodney Terry, both at Texas and at his previous stops as a head coach, has a reputation of having his teams play their best basketball at the end of the season. Didn't see it in February at the end of the regular season, but maybe we're going to see it in Nashville. Desperation's a hell of a drug, y'all. Vanderbilt was already in. Talked about this a little bit on this morning show. Vanderbilt was already in the dance. They didn't need this game today. Texas needed this game today. It's going to be a similar situation tomorrow. A&M's already in. I mean, they're playing for seeding right now, but a quick look at the bracket matrix, I'm seeing the Aggies as a 3 seed. So they are already in the NCAA tournament. Their fate is sealed. They know they're going to be dancing. Texas still needs to win another game to get in. So you wonder if that desperation that we saw from the Longhorns today, playing against a team that doesn't have nearly as much on the line, is going to carry over to tomorrow's game. I'm not saying Vanderbilt didn't try. They didn't rest their players or, go easy on Texas or anything like that. But again, it's just human nature at times that kicks in. When one team is desperate and they're playing for a lot more than the other team, sometimes you see the energy and effort levels match that. When Texas played Vandy in the regular season, they weren't hustling the way that they hustled today. They weren't crashing the boards the way they were today. They weren't diving on the floor for loose balls. They weren't winning those 50-50 battles. They weren't doing any of those things. But today, in a game that mattered more for one team, that one team showed up. Really impressed with the Texas defense today. I mean, Vanderbilt averaged 80 points per game coming in. They had 26 in the first half. That's the fewest points they've scored in any first half all season long. They didn't even get to 20 until there were like 2 minutes and 20 seconds left in the first half. I mean, Texas was making Vandy work for everything on the offensive end of the floor. And again, going back to that regular season matchup, I keep saying in Nashville. Obviously, both games were in Nashville, but on Vandy's campus, Vandy had 17 offensive rebounds in that Texas loss. Texas was plus 10 on the boards through the first 20 minutes when they built that 15-point lead. They didn't give Vandy second chance opportunities. They didn't give them anything easy. Texas did a great job on the low block as well. The Longhorns were dominant in the low post, which is the exact opposite of what happened in the first game. I mean, Jalen Carey got whatever he wanted in the regular season matchup. He was a non-factor today. Arthur Kaluma did a great job on the low block. Caden Shedrick did a great job on the low block. Texas wasn't giving up those easy baskets. They weren't giving up those second chance opportunities that absolutely destroyed them the first time they played the Commies. I don't know if I could say Commies. I feel like that's a bad abbreviation for Commodores. I don't know if they're going to like that one too much. But Vandy couldn't get out and run. Texas wasn't turning the ball over on offense, so the Longhorns were able to set their defense. They kept everything in front of them. You heard Jay Billis talking about that a ton on the telecast. That was the difference in the game. And we'll get to, Trey Johnson. We'll get to Jordan Pope. We'll get to Arthur Kaluma. We'll get to the guys who really showed up in the box score in a moment. I got to give some love to Kendall Weaver, who ended the game with 0 points today. Not often am I going to give shout-outs to guys who don't score. Kendall Weaver was 0 for 2, but he was really impactful in his 18 minutes. He was terrible against Oklahoma on Saturday, understandably so. His first game back after missing 15 straight with that hip flexor injury. he looked a little lost and he looked a little slow against the Sooners. I wasn't sure what to expect from Kendall Weaver today. I didn't know if he was going to play, but he made a difference in that first half, especially the defense, the rebounding. I think he ended up with, 6 rebounds, also 2 assists, a steal, and a block in those 18 minutes. So despite not putting up a singular point, Kendall Weaver made a difference. And look, I'm not going to sit here and act like Texas would be a 3 seed in the NCAA tournament if they had Kendall Weaver all year. But I think Kendall Weaver could have been the difference in 1 or 2 of the close losses that the Longhorns had in the regular season. Having him back right now, again, maybe too little too late, but it's better late than never. He made a difference in that first half, and if he can give that type of performance off the bench tomorrow against Texas A&M, be that spark plug that he was at the end of last season in the NCAA tournament, then that's going to help Texas's chances to pull off the upset against the Aggies tomorrow afternoon. So a definite shout out to Kendall Weaver for what he was able to do. All right, plenty more on this game. Big bounce back from Trey Johnson. And God, it was great to see the supporting cast show up. You can't win. As good as Trey Johnson is, SEC Freshman of the Year, the leading scorer in this conference, you need more than just one guy to show up if you are going to beat good teams in the month of March. Texas got a ton of big-time performances.
March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. Got to have your eye on a couple underdogs this year, and FanDuel makes it easy to back them with spreads, totals, and game props. With tournament games happening almost every day, there's always something exciting to bet on. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when I win, I get paid instantly. No waiting around. And with conference tournament season in full swing, you could turn that $5 into $200 in bonus bets tonight. The quarterfinal of the Big 12 tournament features Texas Tech and Baylor. Baylor needs to build their resume, but they're underdogs here. FanDuel has Texas Tech laying 5.5. Visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoop action all tournament long.
All of a sudden, it's the much maligned Carolina front court that's leading the way.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Here's where we've got to start this conversation coming out of the Notre Dame game. Which, by the way, thankfully, Carolina didn't need an Elliot Cadeau miracle 4-point play to win it this time around like they did back in January. But it is the Carolina front court that has received its lumps. Its fair share of lumps. Its fair share of this front court's not good, but can they just be around and set screens and let the backcourt cook? Well, Pat Kilby. In this game, Jalen Withers goes for a career-high 21 points on 7 of 10 shooting, 9 boards, 1 assist, 0 turnovers, 2 blocks, 2 steals. Van Allen Lubin gets his second double-double in the last 3 games, 17 points on 8 of 13 shooting. This is how you know you're having a year. That 8 of 13 brought his field goal percentage down. 10 rebounds, 5 of them were offensive, an assist, 2 blocks, and a steal. I believe he actually had 2 assists was credited to him after the fact. Pat Kilby, what happens when this Carolina team that is led by its backcourt suddenly has this front court in Jay Witt and Van Allen Lubin that's figured it out, man? What does that mean for this team?
Well, it definitely changes the ceiling for this team. I mean, it's like you said, there's been a lot of criticism towards that front court all year long. And a lot of it has been justified. And to this point, they've struggled. But here lately, they've been playing really well. Obviously, we saw that today. When Jalen Withers, he kind of, in a way, adds a Brady Manic dynamic the way he's been stretching the floor. And obviously today was a different story. But really, I mean, he's been shooting it well for the last 7 or 8 games, I would say. Would you agree with that?
100%.
Yeah.
I think he was a little less effective in the Duke game, but much more in the winning streak and surrounding it. In fact, Pac, his 7 made threes is 1 shy from the all-time Carolina single game record for made threes, which is 8, which a bunch of dudes do. Rashad McCants, Ray Felton, Shammond Williams, Jeff McInnes, Dante Calabria, and Coach Davis himself all had 8 threes in a game. Jalen Withers was one shy of tying that group, Pack. It's absolutely crazy. It's the most threes a Tar Heel has ever made in the ACC tournament.
Yeah, it's remarkable what he did today. But man, he provides a boost. He stretches the floor when he's shooting the ball like that. And I thought Notre Dame was really kind of letting him get great shots.
That's a good point.
His feet were set. Not a lot of them were contested. He was in rhythm, and he was knocking them down. And just that right there in itself, proving that he can do that, is going to change the way that teams have to guard him.
Yep.
And that's going to open.
Go ahead. Yep, exactly. Go. Say what you're saying.
It opens it up so much more for Elliot, Ian, RJ, Seth, you name it. And Venn inside. Yeah, and Venn. It frees up that post because those guys have to guard the perimeter more. And Venn, like we saw today, he's a beneficiary of that. Amongst other things, I thought our ball movement was really good today. We were really sharing the basketball. We were getting paint touches, spraying it around. And Van Allen Lubin was kind of the recipient of some of those help up, dump offs. He slams it home or lays it in. Like, he did a good job with that. But a lot of that is credit to Withers and some of the other guys for stretching the floor the way they've been shooting the ball. And so when we're doing that and they're contributing in those ways, man, it changes the dynamic of our team. One of the things I thought of today when I was watching the game, in the preseason, John Rothstein, he went and watched Carolina practice, and he said, if the bigs can contribute 12 points and 12 rebounds per game, then Carolina is going to be formidable. Do you remember this?
I do. Absolutely.
And we were like, 12 points and 12 rebounds? What are you talking about, dude? Like, they'll get that easy. It turns out maybe some nights they haven't. But the point is, they're over exceeding that now. And it turns out that there may be some truth to that. When those guys are contributing in that way, when they're combining for 38 points, that's going to make us really tough to beat. But even if they just can combine for 20 points and double-digit rebounds with our guard play, I think we're going to be okay. And they seem to have found some consistency in that here in the last few games.
Yeah, just those two alone, not even thinking of J-Wash, 38 points and 19 rebounds for Van Allen Lubin, Pack, just as we all expected. He's the most impactful transfer that Carolina has this year, right? Like, we all saw that coming and we all called it. No, bad, terrible call on Mr. Isaac Shea. But Pack, Van Allen gets a double-double, his second of the season. And listen to this. They've both come in the last 3 games. The Virginia Tech game was the other one. 7th straight double-figure scoring game for Van Allen Lubin. That's the longest streak of his career. And he was get this. I know we always say plus minus is not the end all be all. There's only so much it can do for you. But Van Allen was a game high plus 28 in plus minus in this thing. This dude has he's just found his niche, his niche. I should be less highfalutin, his niche. And everyone else has found it around him, and they're just doing it. I love, Pack, would you talk about, because obviously I noticed it and I talked about it some, but I would love your coaching eyes on this. Notre Dame was so willing to switch everything 1 through 5, and it just let Carolina get simple post looks for Van Allen Lubin, and he finished to the tune of 17 points, 2 off his Carolina career high.
Yeah, well, and it's hard to blame Notre Dame because I've had similar thoughts. A lot of people watch Carolina and they don't think Carolina has enough of a post threat to be concerned with switching. And I think a lot of people look at it and think they don't think Carolina is going to throw in there this year. And we haven't thrown it in there a lot. If you really think about it, how many times have we just thrown it in for a post up? Not nearly as much as we did when number 5 was down there. So that, I think Notre Dame was not necessarily crazy for thinking of switching everything. Yeah. Now, they should have adjusted.
That's the point. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and they never did. And so that's where I think they went wrong. But I don't think they're wrong for trying it, because I probably would have done the same. Because where it gets scary is if you don't switch and you get hung up on a screen or whatever, and then all of a sudden our guards are getting downhill. We're really good when we're doing that, but we did a good job. We did a good job of taking advantage of, excuse me, taking advantage of the switches today. And I think that paid dividends for us.
And what else does that allow when the interior is being strong? The 3-point shooting. It was down in the Duke game, but Carolina reset so well. Pack, they went bonkers in this game from 3, 13 of 28. The season average, you know how we've been looking at what was the season average before the winning streak and what is it now? I've been looking at that. It was 32.3% before the winning streak started. Pack, right now, it is 35.7%. So in 8 games, it's gone up 3.4%. And the Tar Heels, as a team, are now 72nd in the nation in 3-point shooting. Catch this. I didn't realize this until I was looking when I was updating my stats post-game. RJ has made at least 3 threes in each of the last 5 games, Pack. 5 straight games or 3 or more threes for RJ, who, by the way, is now shooting a career high for single season free throw percentage. This dude that was already Carolina's leader in free throw percentage is now shooting the best percentage of his career. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, and he's been, I mean, the stats just backed it up, but he's looked so much more like RJ since we've been on this win streak, or this really good streak of good basketball.
7 out of 8 wins. Right. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. He's looked a lot more like the RJ we expected him to look like. And I think, I mean, we all know when RJ is good, Carolina is good, right? He makes us tick. He is our guy, and he's been playing really well here lately.
In fact, I want to go back to something you said that we moved off of and didn't come back to. You talked about how well Carolina moved the ball, 19 assists on 28 field goals. And when you contrast that with what happened Saturday, Carolina moved it well at times, but only 8 total assists. And Duke just, when they decided Carolina was done, it was over. That defense shut everything off, and Carolina's offense looked completely stagnant. In this game, they moved the ball so much better than that. It was not as electric as it was in the winning streak. Like, Carolina didn't get to 80 points like they did in every game of that winning streak, but they got 76. They didn't get to 1.3 points per possession like they did in every game of that winning streak, but they got to 1.226, Pack, which is plenty of enough against a Notre Dame team that is very slow paced, right? And so that was a big critical thing that I thought was really good. What did you think about the offense in totality? I just wanted to hear more about what you were thinking about how well they moved the ball, including that possession. Let me say really quick, sorry, that possession where they moved it like 9 times, a bunch of pump fakes, wound up with a Van Allen Lubin dunk in the first half there, man. It was just a thing of beauty.
Yeah, that possession stands out the most to me of any in this game. But there were multiple possessions where I thought the ball just moved really well. And a saying I always use with our teams that I thought Carolina did a good job of today: pass up a good shot to get a great one. Pass up a good shot to get a better one. And I thought Carolina did that. I thought there were times we could have shot the ball. And there were still a few possessions where I thought we could have gotten a better look. But for the most part, I thought we gave up good shots to get better ones. And I thought, and I know we'll get into more of this in the second segment, but I thought our defense was good, and that sparked our offense. And the same can be said the other way. Because shots were going in and we were getting after it, it was easier for us to guard. And there's a strong correlation there between those two. But I thought the team did a really good job of sharing the basketball and making sure we got good looks.
March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. Got to have your eye on a couple underdogs this year, and FanDuel makes it easy to back them with spreads, totals, and game props. With tournament games happening almost every day, there's always something exciting to bet on. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when I win, I get paid instantly. No waiting around. And with conference tournament season in full swing, you could turn that $5 into $200 in bonus bets tonight. The quarterfinal of the Big 12 tournament features Texas Tech and Baylor. Baylor needs to build their resume, but they're underdogs here. FanDuel has Texas Tech laying 5.5. Visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoop action all tournament long.
Well, Ohio State has been knocked out of the Big Ten tournament.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
After Ohio State 77-70 loss to Iowa in their opening game in the Big Ten tournament, Ohio State was one of those teams on the bubble. Some say they were the last four into the big dance. Well, right now, they may still be on the last four slot now. I'm not sure that's going to be what's going to happen at the end of the day. It's not just a loss. It's how they look when they play basketball. And this team tonight didn't play well. Really, really cold shooting early, and it wasn't just Ohio State shooting cold. Iowa did too. Once Iowa started to put the ball in the basket, they started to get into a groove, while Ohio State was behind the eight ball. They were struggling throughout the entire game. Iowa, at the end of the day, shot 55% from the field, while Ohio State shot 42%. Ohio State also shot 23% from behind three-point land, which goes into why this is such a struggle, because it wasn't just a shooting percentage. The shooting percentage could have been higher, but you had guys shooting threes that shouldn't shoot threes. There were guys taking shots that should shoot threes, but their shot selection was bad. There were guys that needed to play with a sense of urgency, not just guys. Everybody on the court should have played with a level of a sense of urgency that made Iowa play behind the eight ball. Forced Iowa to play with their back against the wall. You should have been so intense and given all the effort, all the energy, all the hustle all night long, so that even when Iowa was making a shot, you're right there in their hip pocket, making it very, very hard for them to get up the court the next time they get the ball. And Ohio State has the talent. We said this all season long. Bruce Norton, a really good guard. Micah Parrish can play. John Mobley Jr. can play. For some reason, this team has been struggling to put it all together to keep chemistry, to capitalize on some of the things that they do well in games. They don't really put it all together for a full 40 minutes, and that was once again a problem for Ohio State. If you're a team like Ohio State that you know your back's against the wall, you're by numerous draft bracketologists, you're in the last four in section of that bracketology segment. You need to play with a sense of urgency that puts you ahead of the game. And I don't know why that wasn't happening tonight. I truly don't, except for maybe guys don't care. Maybe when the ball's not going in the basket, guys are getting in their own heads. Maybe when things aren't going Ohio State's way, you're having a hard time turning up the intensity on defense, and you're allowing the struggles to control how you act and your behavior. That's not good. That's not right. One thing I can say in a couple words to kind of describe this performance on a Wednesday evening, it was a lackluster performance. And if I'm Jake Diebler, we're going to talk more about Jake Diebler probably in this week, because maybe next week. I'm not exactly sure yet. We're going to dive into the Jake Diebler situation. He didn't really help things this season. Yeah, there was some adversity. There were some things going on internally that don't normally happen. But why was it the same thing over and over and over when before the season started? I'm going back here for a reason. Before the season started, it was very clear that Diebler was a guy that preaches, that teaches energy and hustle. And there were videos going around the socials. I know it's put out there on purpose when he is being hands-on in drills and the intensity and the hustle is going all out in practice. I know that was something that was strategically planned by the social media team of Ohio State to put this out there on the socials. I get that. But my frustration comes in because we talked about it about the football team before spring practice. It takes no talent to put all your energy into something. It takes no talent to hustle. Effort takes no talent. Why is that something this team struggles with over and over and over again? I don't have the answers. Maybe some guys don't care. Maybe some guys see struggles and they can't allow themselves to push themselves to give all the energy. I don't know. We only got to look at the numbers. We could, but the score is exactly what it is. A 7-point loss to Iowa, a team that Ohio State beat in the regular season, a team that at one point Ohio State was better than. Right now, they're not. And if they played again, I don't think I'll pick Ohio State to win. My own thoughts were I was a little not on the optimistic side of Ohio State in the Big Ten tournament. I was on the pessimistic side, which is very, very odd for me because if you ask my wife, I am an optimistic person. But the analyst in me, in regards to this team, simply said that they would not put together a full 40 minutes of good enough basketball to beat Iowa. Now, if they did beat Iowa, they would have gone to play Illinois tomorrow night, and they weren't going to win that game. Like, I'm just being honest with you. Like, I would pick them to lose that game too. This isn't good enough. Ohio State's basketball team needs to be held to a higher standard than what it's currently been held to. The Chris Holtmann thing, that didn't work. There were some things in the latter part of this tenure that forced him to get fired in the middle of the season. Jake Diebler's replacement. And what is it? The same old song and dance? Or maybe even worse? That's not good.